Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you a project that I'm trying to get ready for Christmas. I've made a lot of quilts, but I've never made one for my husband. So I decided that this Christmas I am going to make him a quilt. I showed him several patterns about a month ago, and he told me that he liked this one. So I am going to try and make these blocks up, make one or two of them every week until I get enough to make a queen-sized quilt. I'm cutting fabric that I already have in my stash into 6.5-inch squares. So there's many different kinds and patterns, and I am doing lights and darks, and it's going to be a scrappy pattern using half square triangles on point. So I am just starting this project, and I hope to do an update every couple of weeks to show you how I'm coming along on it. But it's something I felt like would take too long to do, and I really wanted to give you the idea while you still had time to make one also if you'd like to. So I saw this pattern online. I can't remember where, probably from a quilting group on Facebook. And so it consists of half square triangles in light and dark fabrics. And the more blocks I add to it, you'll be able to see how the pattern is with it. With just the small block that I have now, you can't really appreciate how beautiful it's going to be just yet. These are 6.5 inches square. So I'm taking two of the darker fabrics and putting them right sides together, and I am going to mark with my friction pen where I need to stitch. So just a little side note here. Not the smartest thing on my behalf to use a friction pen that is erased with air when I have an overhead fan going and the AC popping on every 5 minutes or so. So I have to work fast because the ink will not stay bright for very long. So I'm marking from corner to corner diagonally, and then I will mark 1/4 inch on each side of that line, and those will be my stitching lines. The middle line is my cutting line. Here I am moving the straight edge, keeping it onto the middle line and marking 1/4 inch from the middle line. Then turning the square of fabric around and doing the same thing on the other side. You may want to use a pen or a pencil or a darker chalk pencil to make the lines instead of the friction pen. I go ahead and take it to the sewing machine and stitch on each line, but not the center line. And I'm not tacking this down to begin or end because I am going to be trimming it up after I cut it into a half square triangle. So I just turn this around and go ahead and go down the other line. And then my cutting line will be the middle line. Did I mention that my middle line was my cutting line? Just putting the straight edge on the fabric square here now and cutting it into 2 pieces. I like to finger press it open so that it will be easier to work with. And then I eventually take it to the ironing board and iron it flat. Next, I am going to square up these half square triangles so that they are all 5.5 inches square. I have to spin it around until the 5.5 is here, and then it's also here, and the diagonal line is matched up. And then I'm going to use this diagonal line and match it over the seam. Just a random thought while I'm finishing up squaring up this block is that you can either make these blocks that I'm making that you saw at the very beginning of the video, 3 rows of 3 each, all sewn together to make a quilt top, or you could make it into a quilt as you go quilt. With sashing in between the blocks, and it would look stunning. And that looks pretty good. I'm going through my fabric to try and find some lighter fabrics to make half square triangles out of those. Just squaring up a lighter half square triangle here. You may think that I am wasting a lot of fabric by how much I'm cutting off, and I really should see that if I make a 6-inch square, if I can cut down on the waist a little bit. I just haven't figured that out yet. I'm looking through my fabric and my scrap bags in particular to try and find some large enough pieces that I can cut into squares. I have this skirt that I made for my daughter when she was a teenager. She either outgrew it or decided she didn't want to wear it anymore, and so I saved it, and I've been using it for fabric when I need pieces of this light green fabric. So I will cut some squares out of that. And then I'm also cutting squares out of some yellow and pinks that I found. And I will be making half square triangles out of those. I can comfortably cut through 4 thicknesses of fabric with a rotary cutter at a time. And so when I am able to find 4 thicknesses or 4 pieces of fabric of the same kind, I have been doing that. You may be able to do 5 or 6, and that will make it go just that much faster. I'm sure that I still need a lot more squares than this to make a queen size quilt top. But so far I have a nice stack of light fabrics and dark fabrics, and I am going to stack them together in sets of 2 so that I can start sewing more together. More stitch marking and then more sewing. Since this was a dark colored fabric and purple, I used a chalk pencil on this piece of fabric. So now I am just laying these blocks out on a flat surface. I am doing light, dark, and light. I have 3 rows of 3, but I may make it 4 rows of 4 or even 5 rows of 5 once I get more colors cut out. And so this is going to be placed on point, which means that the squares will be in a diamond shape like this. And so I am going to sew these together, and then I will come back either next week or the next couple of weeks and show you my progress on it. Christmas is just a little under 4 months away, and so I hope to be able to get a good start on this in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Goodbye.